Minnesota Vikings at the Chicago Bears, getting into the 1 o'clock games here on Sunday. Minnesota is favored by 2.5 at Chicago. I think predicting this game is going to be a challenge because of what we saw there's a similar pattern to what we saw last year with the Bears, where the beginning of the season looked so bad and just incompetent offensively. I know they went 2-1 to start the season, but there was points where Fields had more scrambles than completions. Some stupid stats, right? Early in the year last year. But then a switch flipped, and it was like running Fields showed up, and then he started hitting more throws. And I was like, wow, the Bears, they're at least going to be competitive every week. They wouldn't win games, but they could drop 30 at any time and be really competitive. And I feel like we're at that point right now. Fields is coming off back-to-back games. One was against the Broncos, right? Tore apart the Broncos. But he also tore up Washington. Now, they didn't cover very well at all. There was a lot of open throws there, too. But credit Chicago, man. They look much better offensively these last couple of weeks.
And look, this was right after, remember, Fields came out and said that crazy sort of spiel about, it's coaching. I'm not playing my game. I'm too, laden down with thinking. I'm just not playing instinctively,
It just took a week, but then that kind of showed up.
Yeah. But since that point, he basically has played more. He's been more decisive, and that's a thing, right? Like, one of the many criticisms about this offense earlier in the season is he wasn't being decisive. He wasn't making decisions. He was standing back in the pocket, paralyzed by whatever indecision it was that was affecting him, and he couldn't throw the ball at open receivers. Now at least that's changed. Now you can argue that, hey, against any half-competent defense, and this is the Vikings, so that might not be one, they're not going to be wide open, right? And does that change things? Like, what if the guy isn't open every single play? Are you now going back to not being able to make plays? But against Denver, against Washington, he had wide open receivers basically the whole time, and he was putting the ball in the air.
The first read, first look, whatever you want to call it, stat.
Yep.
4th, Justin Fields in yards per attempt.
Yeah, and look,
4th at 9.1 yards per attempt.
That is the story of Justin Fields in his NFL career. If you look at, even you can do it, you can get to that kind of same point in a variety of different ways, right? One of them, if you look at his grade in the first quarter versus other quarters of the game since he's come into the NFL, like, his first quarter grade is 30 points higher than the other. Like, when the script, the preparation, like everything he's been doing before the week, when he goes in there and just like does what he's being told to do, it's fine. It works. And then you reach a point in the game where you now need to like adjust to what's happening. Like, the game flow takes you in a different direction, or the performance of the defense is sending you in a different direction. And that's when Justin Fields seems to break down and run out of, ideas or the ability to react and change his game. Like that part of Fields, just doing the sort of the served up part has actually always been fine. It's everything else.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this matchup too, because you also we mentioned the Vikings blitz every single week. I know there's definitely some things we have to mention every single week, because when you're going up against the Vikings, you gotta have answers against the blitz, right? They're gonna come after you, and that's also been hit or miss in Fields' career, right? We've got extra blitzers, we've got extra rushers.
Well, he's a classic
handling pressure, throwing hot, all of those things. Like, you got to have all your answers. Do the Bears have those answers against this Vikings defense?
He's the classic, like, dangerous quarterback to blitz. Like, generally, it might be worth doing in the overall sense, but it's probably going to come at a cost somewhere, because he's too athletic. He's got an arm. Like, he can punish you with a huge play if you get it wrong, right? And this is the thing with blitzing, is it's risky, and if you do get it wrong, there's a huge play to be had. But where is are you going to get away with it, right? If you blitz him 20 times in the game, is he going to find one of those big plays, and is that worth it? 19 good plays versus one big one. Is he going to find 2 of them, and then you're like, this is getting away from us? That's, I think, the dynamic of blitzing Fields. It probably is the right call relative to Patrick Mahomes, etc. But it's risky as hell, and if it goes against you, that's the game, basically.
Most quarterbacks, though, are going to you have to beat the blitz with your mind, right? Having hot reads, throwing behind it, and just making good decision after good decision over and over again. You're describing Fields like, hey, if you blow a run, a gap or something like that, he's going to run around you. And there's certainly
it's
that.
both, right? He's
certainly that
one of the
opportunity.
unusual quarterbacks that has the capacity to beat you on both, or either.
Yeah, so I'm interested to see that. I don't think the Vikings are going to dial it back at all because they rarely do. They dialed it back a touch against Mahomes last week. On the other side, we got Justin Jefferson going on IR for the Vikings. Mm-hmm. They're sitting here at 1-4.
So just to put some context to that, against the blitz since the start of 2022, in rushing terms, Justin Fields has a 91.4 grade and is averaging 6.2 yards per attempt, has a bunch of broken tackles, 22 first downs from 46. Like, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
You got to get it right if you're going to blitz him.
But I assume he's been sacked a ton in there too.
He has been sacked a bunch.
If you want to pull that up. I'll talk Minnesota a little bit while you're getting that ready.
27 times. So he's basically either getting sacked or hurting you on the ground for a big play. Nothing in between.
Minnesota's going to take it. They're going after him. Justin Jefferson to IR. Mm-hmm. And so Minnesota, there's a lot of talk about, okay, this is when Kirk Cousins can get traded to a contender. Is Justin Jefferson going to come back to a 2-6, 2-7 team and not want to play for the rest of the year? Should Minnesota just completely blow it up and say, okay, this is the read? If you are an analytics forward-looking GM, you just say, we'll punt on this season. We gave it a go. We'll punt on this season. Maybe we get a top 5 pick and we're in the Drake May, Caleb Williams conversation. Some interesting times here in Minnesota. But they're also they're not as bad as a 1-4 team. They're just a similar team as last year that's had some stuff go the other way.
They weren't, but they might be now.
They might be now. I mean, Justin Jefferson, probably the most valuable non-quarterback in the NFL. He's there.
Yeah, he's at least in the argument.
He's top 3. He's
right.
Top 5 most value. You got Tyreek Hill. I think A.J. Brown. I think Aaron Donald, Chris Jones. A couple of the other edges might be in that conversation, but he's up there.
Yeah.
Top 5 most valuable non-quarterbacks. So that's going to probably make this team worse.
Sure. And now you're looking at this receiving core from Minnesota, and it's like rookie Jordan Addison may end up being the most targeted receiver for them. If it's not him, it's probably TJ Hawkinson, a tight end. KJ Osborne now has to be like a number 2/number 1 in that offense. I don't know that he's shown the ability to do that. The dump-off options, we've talked about, Alexander Madison dropping an easy touchdown last week. This goes from being an amazing-looking receiving core with the best receiver in the game to, this is kind of weak. And when you add that to everything else that's weak, that's not great.
By the way, with our picks, I've got 40. I got to get our official records here. I've got 40 wins this year. I've just counted our wins. Uh-huh. I've got 40. You have 34.
Okay. So are you keeping track of the 2000 Ravens and the Denver Broncos this year? Like, how many weeks is it going to take you to get more wins than you had all of last year?
I'm probably close. Yeah. We should pull that up pretty soon here, because I'm thinking pick wise in this game, I'm leaning Chicago. I'm buying into the last 2 weeks. They're coming off their first win. Their second half collapse against the Broncos away from having 2 wins.
Yeah.
Being far more competitive. They're underdogs at home here. And I think Fields is starting to play the way we thought he would before the year. Not necessarily, 8 touchdowns, no picks, not that, but just, hey, he's dangerous now after looking horrible for 3 weeks. So I'll take the Bears as 2.5-point underdogs here against the Vikings.
Yeah, I'm not even necessarily buying into the Fields thing. It's more we saw that he can work against terrible defenses, and this looks like another terrible defense in addition to an offense whose best weapon just went on IR. So it's difficult to see the Vikings putting up that much of a threat. It's really, can Chicago back that up? And I think they could probably do what they did last week. So yeah, I'm going to go with the Bears as well.
Is it even viable to have Kirk Cousins traded?
Not really. We talked about this with Trev a little bit. There's a few problems. Number one, he has a no-trade clause, so he has to buy into whatever team is trading for him.
Right.
Number two, how many of those teams are there? Because they're going to have to pay him what he's going to get in the open market, maybe plus some, in order to acquire him. So how many teams
Not necessarily. You're paying the rest of this year's salary.
Right, but part of him buying into it and saying, yeah, I'll waive my no-trade clause to uproot myself from my nice mansion here and go to wherever the hell you're playing, is presumably going to include, and the next $200 million that's going to come with that in the offseason, right?
Maybe.
So this is what I'm saying. I think it very quickly narrows down to 1-2 options, like who are even going to be vaguely, because you have to be probably good enough this year that you can convince not just yourself but Cousins that if he steps onto this team, it's a playoff team, right? Number 2, it's got to be a team who is interested in him beyond this year and is willing to pay $200 million for that. And that, I mean, how many of those are there? 1? Atlanta?
On top of, I think the only example I can think of where a QB was traded and then just, I mean, I guess Josh Dobbs did it this year, but Sam Bradford.
Right. He's got to come in and like start right away
and
be good.
You have to come in. So when Sam Bradford was traded for by the Vikings, he comes in, sits out a week. He missed week 1. Was it Sean Hill started for him? But then week 2,
right.
Sam Bradford, with like 2 weeks in the system, comes in, balls out. But he comes in with 2 weeks in the system. That's rare. I mean, Baker Mayfield got on the plane, got the playbook, and, ran plays the next day. It's not impossible, but you're also not talking about like just filling in as a starter.
Bill Belichick, Hail Mary, New England.
Oh, geez. It's funny because they're in all of these conversations now. They're in all the QB conversations that the Jets have always been in, and the Falcons are in, and all of a sudden New England's in those as well.
I don't even know if that, I mean, does that qualify? Like, can you convince yourself and Cousins that if Cousins steps onto that team, New England, they're good?
No.
Right. So this is what I'm saying. Like, I don't know that there's one of those teams out there where the conversation even makes sense.
No, it probably doesn't.